on that. So during my fostering, almost all dogs were Tongaos or mixed breed of some kind. I had one dog who was definitely a pure breed, or rather close to a pure breed. And he was my only real experience of an ex-breeder dog or a pet shop dog. So he's called Mac, and I got the call from Hong Kong Dog Rescue saying, we've got someone who's giving up their dog. Can you go and get him? He's round the corner from where I lived in Sai Kung. I was absolutely, we'll go get him. So I was on the Macklehose Trail at the time hiking. So I decided we'll call the dog Mac for Macklehose. So I turn, he was lovely. So we turn up and there's this giant poodle. He was a standard poodle, but he was already about 16, 18 kilos. So he was standing at hip height. He was about 6 months old. And this genuinely lovely couple kind of brought him down saying, oh yeah, we can't keep him. Now they did come up with a myriad of different reasons, none of which quite made sense, but it was like, okay. And I'm going to read between the lines and make an assumption here that I think they purchased him on the internet. And I think they purchased a standard poodle. Now, because of the plethora of poodles we have in Hong Kong, I think a lot of people think a poodle is about 4 kilos. A standard poodle is 25 kilos. They're large dogs. So my guess, and again, I don't know if I'm right, but my guess is that they purchased a standard poodle online and expecting this little thing to turn up, and a very large dog arrived. Because they'd only had him for 2 to 3 days when they decided to surrender him. So I picked up Mac, and he's this beautiful dog. Of course, he was nervous. All dogs, when they first get picked up by a complete stranger, are a little bit nervous. He was a bit nervous, and I took him home. I was like, oh, this is probably the biggest puppy I've dealt with. He was 16 kilos. And it's my first breed. So I was kind of excited to see, like, what's the difference between a Tongao and a breed. And honestly, I was horrified. He was a 6-month-old dog. His teeth were basically rotten because he's obviously been on a diet of soft food for his entire life. So his teeth were awful. I took him outside and he ducked because I don't think he'd ever been outside before. So he didn't know where the ceiling was. He didn't know how to use the stairs. He didn't know what grass was. Grass completely panicked him. He didn't understand. He was moving his paws like this is a weird sensation for him. He'd trained himself to go to the toilet inside. So even though we had him outside for hours playing in the garden, the moment I brought him inside, he relieved himself. And I was like, oh my goodness, kind of this dog has spent presumably 6 months in a cage, maybe in a factory somewhere, 6 months inside. And all these behaviors I've been trained into this poor animal. And so when people are buying, they think they're buying this perfect kind of picture perfect poodle from a beautiful environment. It's like, you're not. You're getting this wreck of a dog who doesn't know how to be a dog. Now, thankfully, Mac was a brilliant animal. He bounced back so quickly. Within 2 to 3 weeks, he was behaving like a completely normal 6-month-old puppy, and he was bouncing off the walls. He had so much energy. We got him lead walking. We got him in the water. There's actually some videos on my Instagram of his first time in the sea, him getting a bit confused, like what's going on. And he got adopted by just a fantastic family out in Sai Kung who are going to give him hours and hours of exercise every day. They have another dog similar to Ronnie, and a bigger mongrel. And it's, again, a happy story. But I think the reason I brought Mac up was, of all the pups that I fostered, he was the one that came with baggage. He was the one that came with potential behavior issues. And his background was pet shop, was breeder. Again, I'm making some guesses here. But that's where he came from. So kind of for me, that was the biggest and most stark, obvious revelation of being in a shelter doesn't necessarily mean you've got any baggage, but coming from a pet shop or coming from a breeder, God knows the experiences his parents, his mum, his poor mother and dad, presumably, are going through, his siblings as well. And it was, for me, it was a reaffirmation of why we should support the adopt, don't shop ethos, and just kind of a very stark reminder of how bad things could be or could have been for poor Mac. But thankfully a happy story in the end.